Gino told Natalie his marriage to Jasmine was over. That was not fully true, and the second that detail slips into focus, the whole story tilts sideways, because now every smile, every promise, every airport reunion starts to feel unstable. Welcome back. I'm Sabrina and you're watching TLC Drama Live, and if you follow 90 Day Fiance, you already know this triangle is messy. But what unfolded between Gino, Natalie, Jasmine, and even cousin Dana was not simple relationship drama. It was a timing problem, a truth problem, and possibly a motive problem. So subscribe and stay with me because this one keeps twisting. Gino reassured Natalie that his chapter with Jasmine was closed. Clean break. Done. That is what Natalie believed when she made the decision to step back into his life. But then comes the party at Dana's house, and everything shifts from private confusion to public chaos. Jasmine confronts Natalie face to face. Not subtle, not calm. It turns into an emotionally charged scene that nobody in that room could ignore. You could see the tension in Natalie's posture, the shock in her expression, and Gino standing there looking like a man who hoped his past would stay quiet. And here is the uncomfortable question that refuses to go away. If Gino was finished with Jasmine, why did Jasmine feel confident enough to show up and confront Natalie like that? Public humiliation changes the energy. Once something plays out in front of friends and family, the stakes rise. Natalie is not dealing with a rumor. She is dealing with a woman who still believes she has a claim. And Jasmine did not act like someone who had been gently released and emotionally processed. She acted like someone who felt misled, or at least not fully replaced. Now pause for a second and think like an adult who has watched enough of this franchise to recognize pattern. When someone says they are done, but the ex still feels attached, either the closure was incomplete or the messaging was mixed. Which one happened here? Natalie walked into Michigan believing she was stepping into a fresh start. But was she a fresh start or was she an emotional rebound? That question lingers because timing matters. If Jasmine was still emotionally in the picture, then Natalie's role becomes unclear. Was she chosen or was she convenient? And then another layer. Was Gino hedging his bets, keeping options open? That kind of behavior does not require villain energy. It requires fear of being alone. Some people struggle to close one door before opening another. That does not make them evil, but it does create collateral damage. Look at Jasmine's reaction again. Did she know more than Natalie did? Was she aware that Gino's closure speech was softer than he presented? Or was she blindsided too? And let's not ignore Natalie's side. She is cautious, yes, but she is also back on screen, back in the storyline, back in the orbit of drama. Is she chasing love, or is she comfortable in the spotlight that this chaos brings? That question is uncomfortable, but fair. Then comes the detail that shifts suspicion into something heavier. Gino later admits he had dinner with Jasmine shortly before Natalie arrived. Not months before, not ancient history, shortly before. Think about that timing. If you tell someone the marriage is over, emotionally done, and you are still meeting your ex for dinner days before your new romantic interest flies in, what message are you sending? Was it closure or was it reconsideration? Because once he admits he was even considering getting back with Jasmine, the clean break story collapses. And if he was done, truly done, why was he still showing up? Now pull the timeline closer, because the dates matter more than the drama. Gino went to dinner with Jasmine days before Natalie landed in Michigan. Not weeks. Not some distant overlap you can excuse as emotional residue. Days. And during that same stretch, he was telling Natalie he was finished, that the marriage was over, that the door was closed. Then later he admits he was still considering getting back together with Jasmine. Considering. That word changes everything, because it means the decision was not settled when Natalie packed her bags. So what do we call that behavior? Is it weakness? A man struggling to detach from a long relationship? Or is it option keeping, where you do not fully release one person until the next feels secure? Option keeping is subtle. You do not announce it. You soften truths. You delay final conversations. You let two emotional tracks run at the same time. And from the outside, it looks like confusion. But from the inside, it can feel strategic. But let's be fair. Breakups are messy. People relapse emotionally. People have closure dinners. People sit across from an ex and test their own feelings one last time. That does not automatically mean manipulation. It can mean unresolved attachment. It can mean fear. It can mean loneliness. The human brain does not shut off bonds on command. That part is real. Still, the question will not go away. If you are unsure, why tell Natalie you are sure? Why present a clean ending when you were still evaluating whether to restart? That is where trust fractures. Because uncertainty is honest. Pretending certainty while still deciding is not. And this is where the tension tightens. Natalie is preparing to fly into a situation she believes is stable. She thinks she is walking into something new, not stepping into a love triangle that is still emotionally active. You can see why her guard later feels sharper. She was not stepping into neutral territory. She was stepping into a space where another woman had been sitting days earlier. But now let's push the lens slightly wider, because viewers are not blind. Natalie has been on television before. She understands screen presence. She understands story arcs. So when she reconnects with Gino under this cloud of unfinished business, some fans start whispering another possibility. Is she here purely for romance, or does she also understand the value of visibility? That is not an accusation. It is a question about incentives. Reality television rewards tension. It rewards triangles. It rewards unresolved exes. If Gino is hedging emotionally, could Natalie also be calculating emotionally? Or is she simply hoping this time he is telling the truth? Watch Gino's body language when the dinner detail comes out. Nervous energy, rambling explanations, not the calm clarity of someone who tied up loose ends months ago. And when he admits he was considering getting back with Jasmine, you see Natalie recalibrate, not explode, recalibrate. That response is interesting. Anger is simple. Controlled distance is strategic. So now the stakes rise, because this is no longer about whether he met Jasmine. It is about whether Natalie was walking into a situation where she was plan A or plan B, waiting for confirmation. She boards that flight believing she is entering a clean slate. She was not. The explosion at Dana's party did not start loud. It started tense. You could feel it building before a single sharp word landed. Natalie walks into a family setting expecting cautious introduction, maybe awkward small talk, maybe side glances. Instead, Jasmine shows up with energy that does not look resolved. It looks territorial. And suddenly, Cousin Dana's house is not a casual gathering anymore. It turns into a stage where unfinished emotions spill into the open. Jasmine confronts Natalie directly, not behind her back, not through a third person, face to face. The tone is charged. The body language is tight. This is not someone who feels replaced peacefully. This is someone who feels displaced. And Natalie's reaction reads like shock mixed with calculation. She did not sign up to defend her position at a family function. She thought she was stepping into something settled. So what was this? Jasmine staking a claim? Or Jasmine reacting to mixed signals she had been receiving? Because here's the part nobody likes to admit. Women rarely show up that boldly unless they believe they still have standing. That belief does not appear from thin air. Now look at Gino in that moment. He is there. He is present. But he is not commanding the situation. He is not firmly drawing a boundary. He is not saying this is over, this is done. Please respect that. Instead, he looks uncomfortable, almost frozen, passive. And when a man stays passive in a confrontation between his past and his present, both women end up feeling unsupported. Ask yourself something. If he truly ended things cleanly, why did he not shut it down immediately? Why allow the tension to escalate in front of family? The chaos becomes uncomfortable to watch because it is not playful drama. It is public humiliation. Natalie stands there having to process information in real time while being evaluated by relatives who are trying to understand who belongs in this picture. That is not a light introduction. That is trial by fire. And yet, here is where the absurdity slips in. Even dented pots have lids, right? That old saying about how everyone finds someone. In this case, it feels less romantic and more chaotic, because instead of two imperfect people finding each other, we have three imperfect people colliding in one living room. It almost sounds comedic until you remember there are real emotions involved. Now strip the humor away and look at the seriousness again. Jasmine's confrontation does not look random, Natalie's shock does not look staged, and Gino's passivity does not look decisive. Each reaction feeds the other. Territorial energy meets cautious skepticism. Silence meets suspicion. And here's the twist that keeps the story from being simple. After all of that, after the public tension, after the confrontation, after the awkwardness in front of family, Natalie does not walk away. She does not slam the door. She does not declare herself done. She keeps the door open. Why? When the dust settles after the party chaos, the real tension moves indoors, into quieter rooms where words matter more than volume. In Michigan, Gino finally says it out loud. He admits he was considering getting back with Jasmine, not just meeting her, not just talking, considering restarting the relationship. And the air changes immediately, because this is no longer about miscommunication. This is about active indecision while promising someone else certainty. Natalie does not explode. She does not perform outrage. She leans in and starts asking questions with a calm tone that feels sharper than yelling ever could. Her face stays composed, but her eyes are calculating. She wants timelines. She wants clarity. She wants to know what considering means. Was it a fleeting thought? Was it an emotional test? Was it a serious option? This is where the dynamics shift. Natalie is no longer the blindsided woman at a party. She becomes the interrogator, controlled, focused, listening for inconsistencies. And Gino looks like a man trying to balance remorse with self-preservation. He frames his admission as honesty, as transparency, as growth. But pause right there. Is this honesty freely offered, or is it honesty extracted because the truth was already circling him? There is a difference between volunteering a confession and conceding when confronted. If Jasmine had never shown up publicly, would this admission have happened at all? Gino seems to be building a redemption arc in real time. He admits fault. He softens his tone. He tries to show vulnerability. He wants Natalie to see that he is choosing her now. But now feels complicated when days ago looked different. From a psychological angle, this is classic image repair. When someone senses trust slipping, they offer partial transparency to regain footing. It can be sincere. It can also be strategic. The intent lives in the timing. Natalie listens. She does not let him off easily. She presses him on why he told her the marriage was over if he was still emotionally evaluating Jasmine. She points out the contradiction without theatrics. That calm approach makes it harder for him to hide behind emotional noise. And here is what makes this compelling. She does not look desperate. She looks cautious. That is strength. But then comes the subtle twist. After hearing all of this, after absorbing the admission, after acknowledging the inconsistency, she does not close the chapter. She does not say this is unforgivable. Instead, she agrees to keep seeing him. She allows space for him to prove himself. Why? Is she giving grace because she sees genuine remorse? Or is she curious whether he will finally show consistency? There is also the possibility that she believes she holds the upper hand now. Once someone confesses doubt, the power balance shifts. She knows he needs reassurance from her more than she needs validation from him. And then another development enters quietly, but significantly. They plan to meet again in Washington, D.C., a different city, a different atmosphere. Neutral ground. Michigan carried history. D.C. carries possibility. The tension is controlled, but it is rising. Because a new setting does not erase old doubt. It magnifies them. And if he is serious about redemption, Washington will test it. Washington brings a different backdrop, a different rhythm, and for a brief moment, it feels like a reset button has been pressed. New city, new air, less family pressure, less history sitting in the room. Gino arrives looking cautious but hopeful. Natalie looks composed, observant, measured. This is not Michigan. This is neutral territory. And neutral territory can either calm tension or expose it faster. Then the weather shifts. Plans fall apart. Outdoor moments get canceled. And suddenly, what was meant to be structured time out in public turns into something more private. Natalie invites him to her place. Simple decision on the surface. Logistical. Practical. But emotionally, it changes the temperature of the entire interaction. Because private space removes witnesses. It removes distractions. It forces conversation. It also creates closeness that cannot hide behind crowded rooms or public settings. That kind of forced intimacy reveals whether two people are reconnecting out of genuine comfort or performing reconciliation for optics. So ask yourself, was this vulnerability or was this control? Inviting him in places Natalie in a position of power. This is her space, her rules, her pace. After Michigan, after the confession, after the public embarrassment at Dana's party, the balance has shifted slightly in her favor. Gino enters her environment now, not the other way around. And Gino seems nervous again. His energy reads like someone aware that this is a test. He talks, he explains, he tries to show he is different from the man who kept options open days before she flew in. You can sense him trying to prove stability. But here is where another layer creeps in quietly. Natalie knows the cameras are there. She knows this storyline is active. She understands the currency of tension on reality television. That does not mean her feelings are fake. It means awareness exists. When she chooses to keep the door open and bring him into a more intimate setting, viewers start questioning motive again. Is she rebuilding trust or is she sustaining narrative momentum? Be careful not to jump to conclusions. People are complex. She can want love and still understand visibility. Those two things are not mutually exclusive. Now the tone shifts slightly. because the conversation drifts toward attraction, chemistry, presentation. There is an implication about sexy underwear. It is not graphic, it is suggestive, and the moment could easily be framed as playful flirtation after tension. But look deeper. Is it seduction or is it leverage? When intimacy enters a fragile dynamic, it becomes a tool. If Natalie presents herself confidently, if she controls how much closeness is allowed, she tests whether Gino's loyalty is rooted in emotion or physical validation. And for Gino, stepping into that space means he must prove he is not just chasing comfort after conflict. It sounds light. It even feels slightly spicy. But underneath, it is a power dynamic unfolding quietly. She holds access. He seeks reassurance. And if intimacy becomes the glue holding this second chance together, what happens when the old doubts resurface again? Even in Washington, Gino keeps mentioning Jasmine. Not in private, not as a passing comment, but publicly, in ways that draw attention. It is almost automatic, like a reflex, and the effect is immediate. The atmosphere shifts every time her name appears. Conversations pause. Natalie's expressions tighten. Even casual onlookers sense the tension. And viewers at home are left asking the same question. Why does he keep bringing his ex into every room, into every story, into every decision? This behavior speaks volumes without him saying much else. Is it unresolved attachment, a lingering emotional thread he cannot fully sever? Or is it ego validation? The subtle reassurance that he is still desired by someone he once loved. Both possibilities are plausible. Attachment doesn't vanish because you're moving forward. And yet, ego validation can make old connections feel like lifelines you are afraid to cut completely. It is human behavior, messy and complicated, and one slip can ignite a room. From another angle, it's worth noting that reality television is rarely neutral. Producers create framing, editing, and scene setups that heighten these conflicts. Sometimes the triangle is amplified intentionally, moments are captured for dramatic effect, and reactions are guided by camera placement. That does not erase the tension, but it adds another layer for analysis. Was Gino naturally oversharing, or was he nudged into being the dramatic center of this triangle? Probably both. Natalie, for her part, remains cautious. She does not overreact, but she watches. Every word, every reference, every glance is processed. She is not closed, but she is clearly wary. Her mind is active in ways Gino cannot see, calculating whether this is genuine reconciliation or a replay of old patterns. And that tension between caution and openness is what keeps audiences riveted, because they see both the internal calculation and the external dynamic unfolding simultaneously. Behaviorally, this is fascinating. Gino is trying to navigate guilt, redemption, attraction, and accountability all at once. Each public mention of Jasmine tests the boundaries Natalie has set. Each mention also forces Gino to confront the reality of his choices in real time. Meanwhile, viewers are left assessing him alongside Natalie, weighing sincerity against instinctual behavior. And here is where the stakes subtly rise. If he is honest now, if he shows clarity and commitment, does Natalie fully forgive? Can trust rebuild in a triangle that was never truly settled before? That uncertainty keeps attention simmering, because the audience knows that actions, more than words, will decide the next chapter. Every mention of Jasmine becomes a reflection of unresolved emotions, of strategy, and of human frailty. It highlights how past attachments influence present choices, and how even cautious optimism can be undermined by lingering ties. The room feels charged, the cameras catch it all, and the audience is left in suspense, realizing that honesty alone may not be enough to repair the damage already done. The balance of power in this situation is never static. In one moment, Gino appears to hold control, showing initiative, speaking first, trying to explain, trying to prove himself. In the next, Natalie shifts the energy completely, leaning back, asking the questions, observing, deciding how much access he earns, who gets the benefit of doubt, who needs whom more. That is the question everyone watching wants answered, because it drives every interaction, every glance, every pause between words. Natalie is guarded. Her posture, her tone, her pacing, everything signals she is cautious, alert, calculating. She does not react emotionally the way some people might expect. There is a stillness in her control, a slow burn that keeps the audience guessing what she will do next. And Gino, he is visibly uncomfortable. Words stumble out in uneven sentences. He fidgets. He shifts topics mid-thought. He backtracks. The energy is frantic. unsteady, like a man walking a tightrope with no safety net. Is this nervous, babbling guilt or anxiety? Perhaps both. Guilt because he misrepresented his relationship status. Anxiety because he knows every move is being assessed by Natalie, by the cameras, and by the audience at home. Every utterance is under scrutiny. Every hesitation fuels speculation. And viewers are drawn in because human behavior under pressure is fascinating. It is drama without scripting, but with stakes that feel very, very real. Rapid-fire questions start to pile up in the viewer's mind. Will Natalie call him out on every inconsistency? Will Gino actually stay consistent for more than 5 minutes at a time? What happens if he slips again? How much emotional bandwidth does she have left? And with every minor misstep, the tension tightens, creating the kind of edge-of-the-seat feeling that makes people forget to scroll away. The dialogue moves quickly. The pace increases because you cannot afford for this moment to plateau. Every sentence packs weight. Every pause is intentional. Every glance is meaningful. The energy shifts like a live wire. A single misstatement could tip the balance. A single nod from Natalie could reaffirm her dominance in this interaction. And then, the deeper question emerges, lurking beneath the immediate confrontation. Someone is still lying. Who is it? Gino? Natalie? Or is it the invisible truth that neither is fully acknowledging? This uncertainty fuels anticipation because the human brain craves resolution but is forced to wait. The interplay between spoken words, body language, and unspoken intentions creates a suspense that is irresistible to watch. As they navigate proximity, conversation, and tension, it is clear that control is fragmented. The room is a battlefield of influence, with micro moments revealing who has the upper hand at each turn. Gino's nervous energy clashes against Natalie's calculated restraint, creating an unpredictable pattern that keeps everyone watching, guessing, and completely hooked. After weeks of tension, the narrative circles back to a question that refuses to settle quietly. Was Natalie an emotional rebound, or was she genuinely the next chapter Gino wanted to write? The timing raises eyebrows. He claimed the marriage with Jasmine was over, yet his actions, dinners, lingering thoughts, public references painted a more complicated picture. Rebounds are not inherently malicious. They are emotional bridges for people trying to cope with unfinished business. And in this story, the bridge is shaky, lined with uncertainty, and constantly tested. But let's be fair, suggesting that Natalie was merely a rebound does not erase her agency. She chose to engage with Gino despite knowing fragments of the past. She weighed her options, gauged trust, and decided to proceed cautiously. Her decisions are calculated, but that does not make them artificial. She is navigating real emotions in a high-stakes environment. And while Gino's consideration of Jasmine in the days before her arrival hints at lingering attachment, it also exposes the tension between past habit and present intention. Jasmine, on the other hand, complicates the picture further. Is she a backup plan? A safety net Gino subconsciously clings to? Or is she simply a person whose unresolved feelings are being pulled into the orbit of a new relationship? The difference is subtle, but crucial. One is about strategy, the other about emotional residue. Both interpretations create friction, suspense, and moral ambiguity for the audience. And ambiguity is what keeps viewers glued to the story, questioning every glance, every pause, every careful word exchanged. This brings us back to the lie that started it all. The statement in Act 1, where Gino insisted his marriage was finished. That lie is the axis around which this rebound theory spins. Because if the foundation of honesty is shaky, every subsequent move, every attempt at reconciliation is measured against that initial breach of trust. Gino's redemption arc, his confession in Michigan, his controlled behavior in Washington, faces constant scrutiny because it is tested against the unresolved past. Is he truly choosing Natalie, or is he merely attempting to reset the narrative after the first misstep became public? The emotional calculus becomes layered. Rebound, backup, sincerity, performance, each factor adds tension and complexity. Natalie's caution is justified, and Gino's attempts at redemption are simultaneously compelling and suspect. The story now operates on multiple levels: romantic dynamics, strategic positioning, and the psychological interplay of trust, attachment, and choice. Every conversation and every glance is magnified because the audience knows the past is never entirely gone. It lingers and influences every present interaction. And then there is the looming question that sets up the next stage of tension. What happens if Jasmine fully re-enters the picture? Her presence, her voice, her intentions, real or perceived, could unravel the fragile stability Natalie and Gino are trying to build. Every cautious step, every carefully measured word could be rendered obsolete. The potential for confrontation, emotional recalibration, and public drama remains high, and the audience is left anticipating how this unresolved variable might tip the scales. In this way, the rebound theory is not about judgment. It is about human behavior under emotional pressure, the push and pull of attachment, and the intricate dance between past and present choices that defines whether trust can ever be rebuilt. Even as the emotional storm rages between Gino and Natalie, there is another layer quietly spinning in the background. The spotlight. Reality TV is never neutral, and anyone who steps onto the set understands that screen time carries weight. Not every glance, every smile, every guarded word is purely romantic. Some of it is positioning. Some of it is aware choreography to maintain relevance. And Natalie is not oblivious to that. She knows cameras are rolling, she knows tension sells, and she moves carefully, balancing caution with presence. But let's be fair, awareness of the camera is not the same as manipulation. Watching how she navigates the triangle reveals someone who is smart, strategic, and intentional. She weighs emotional investment against public perception. She allows Gino moments to prove himself while simultaneously observing his behavior for inconsistencies, and her decisions create tension that audiences can feel even through the screen. That balance between being human and being on display is subtle, and it rewards patience and control. Screen time rewards drama, friction, and narrative arcs. Any unresolved any awkward dinner, any public confrontation, all of it becomes currency. The audience reacts, ratings fluctuate, social media explodes. And when viewers notice Natalie's cautious engagement alongside Gino's nervous attempts at redemption, it reads as intrigue layered on emotional complexity. She is managing risk, both romantic and reputational, which leads to the central question of this act. Is this romance or is it positioning? It is impossible to reduce either party's behavior to a single motivation. Gino is trying to regain trust, attempting to navigate past missteps and showing vulnerability. Natalie is trying to assess honesty while holding her ground. Yet, the optics of fame and airtime inevitably factor into decisions: what to reveal, when to step forward, how much forgiveness to grant in public. It is not cynical. It is situational awareness under high-pressure circumstances. And here's where we can tie it back to the metaphor from earlier, the dented pot. In theory, even a damaged vessel can hold something valuable. Even relationships that have been bruised, tested, and publicly scrutinized can still contain genuine connection. Natalie's strategy, her patience, her calculated caution, all act as the lid for a pot that has been dented by lies, indecision, and past attachment. But will the lid hold, or will cracks reappear once external pressure increases? Every viewer now begins to wonder, when the cameras are rolling and the personal stakes are real, who is truly in control? Who benefits most from this emotional pendulum? And when the final choice is presented, will love prevail over strategy, or will the pressures of visibility, public expectation, and past mistakes tilt the scales once more? The story is edging toward a conclusion. The emotional turbulence, the questions of loyalty, the subtle tension between genuine desire and calculated positioning all lead to one pivotal moment, the final choice. And in that moment, everything comes into focus: the truth, the trust, and the potential for either closure or continued chaos. The audience is left anticipating, holding their breath, because one decision will determine whether redemption is real or the narrative continues to spiral. Gino stands there, the weight of the past weeks hanging over him like a storm that hasn't fully passed, and for the first time, you see him trying to hold nothing back. His words are careful, but open, his explanations no longer defensive, but intentional. He admits mistakes, acknowledges the timing errors, and makes no attempt to rewrite history. This is the honesty Natalie demanded, and the moment feels fragile because trust is not rebuilt in one conversation. It is tested in every glance, every pause, every small decision that follows. Natalie listens, measured and controlled, but something shifts in her posture. The guard she carried through Michigan, through Dana's party, through Washington, softens just slightly, not fully lowered, not naive, but recalibrated. She begins to see him not as a man dodging responsibility, but as someone attempting to reconcile action with intention. Her questions sharpen, her tone remains calm, but she is giving him room to demonstrate consistency. And that tension, That careful opening is what keeps the viewer glued, because the balance could tip at any moment. But here's the twist. What if neither of them is fully on the offense? What if Natalie's guarded patience and Gino's careful confessions are both defensive moves? They are not chasing, they are not surrendering, they are maneuvering, testing, assessing. Every compliment, every apology, every step toward intimacy carries an element of caution. They are protecting themselves as much as seeking connection. And that subtle reversal changes the dynamic entirely. The audience is left questioning who truly controls the relationship and whether the forward momentum is authentic or just mutual defense. Even within this defensive posture, emotional threads start to pay off. Gino's repeated admissions, small gestures, and willingness to face uncomfortable truths slowly build credibility. Natalie's measured responses, her observation of inconsistencies, and her willingness to give space for proof create a rhythm where trust can inch forward. The lie from Act 1 is acknowledged, the dinner before the flight is understood, the public confrontations at Dana's are accounted for. Each piece of the puzzle finds its place. Yet, one question remains deliberately unresolved. What will happen if Jasmine decides to re-enter fully? That uncertainty keeps the narrative alive, a subtle tension hovering in the background, reminding viewers that not every variable has been resolved. It is the thread that links past drama with potential future chaos, a quiet hook that sustains curiosity without undermining the current payoff. By the end of this sequence, the emotional payoff lands cleanly. Natalie has not blindly forgiven. Gino has not perfectly proven himself, but both have navigated enough risk and honesty to create a tentative equilibrium. And that sets the stage for the next storyline, because as one triangle begins to stabilize, another looms in the background. The tension shifts, attention pivots, and the audience is ready for the drama surrounding Kim and Jamal, where similar themes of trust, deception, and emotional stakes explode in a very different but equally gripping way. And as the camera lingers on Gino and Natalie's cautious reconciliation, the unspoken question lingers in the air, drawing viewers forward. If redemption is possible here, what does it mean for Kim and Jamal's own unraveling story? The next video will answer that, and the suspense carries seamlessly into what comes next.